Wow, what can I say? Formula One is so effing brutal. Honestly, I was originally going to record this video about the Silverstone weekend, and I was going to call it "Should Red Bull Dump Perez?" But just before I hit record and set up these lights for this video, the news has just dropped that Danny Ric is back and he's replacing De Vries at Toro Rosso for the rest of the year. In this video, we review the Silverstone weekend, we touch on whether Perez should be dropped, and obviously we touch on Danny Ric's return. Whew! I don't know where to begin with this video, honestly. I'm that pumped. I don't know if you can tell that I got blood pumping around my body, my veins, and just hyped. Obviously, I went to Silverstone, I had a good time there. We had a good race at Silverstone. Danny Ric is testing at Silverstone today, and now the news has dropped that Danny Ric is back. So, wow. Silverstone was a really good event. I enjoyed that race. Hopefully you did too. It was really good and interesting to see someone else leading the first few laps. It took Verstappen a little while to overtake Norris back, and when he did, it was interesting to see that he didn't pull away straight away. Norris was still there within the DRS range, but it did turn out later on that Verstappen was just managing his pace. But we need to understand, we need to realise that Red Bull is so far ahead that Verstappen is pretty much driving at 30% full speed during the whole race. 30% of that race is pretty much full speed for Max. The other time is managing the tyres, managing the car, and bringing it home. So when he took Norris and he went in the lead and he was managing the tyres during the first stint, it was with the understanding that the tyres would then run out. The degradation behind the tyres would go away. But when he realised that the tyres were okay, he then upped his pace. And that's what he said in the interviews after the race. It was interesting to see this race with Pirelli bringing harder compounds of tyre to this race and for the rest of the season. It meant that pretty much all the tyres did well, and it was pretty much a one-stop race. And everyone realised early on that their tyres were lasting longer, apart from Ferrari, who for some reason brought Leclerc in for hard tyres and treated the race as if it was a high deg race for both the cars, which then hindered their pace and hindered their performance. And that's just Ferrari being Ferrari. As much as it pains me to say, as someone who wants Ferrari to do well, they're still acting like amateurs. So that was interesting to see. But when everyone saw that Russell with his red tyres was lasting throughout the whole race and it was extending his stint by another 10-15 laps, everyone realised that they can go from mediums to reds, and that's pretty much what they did. Apart from Norris at the end, who went for hards. With the McLaren car being harder on the tyres, they wanted to go conservative and go with the hard tyres. McLaren revealed after the race that during the VSC, they decided to go with the hard tyres. But then just as I was coming into the pits, it was changing to a full safety car, and they didn't have that time to change the hard tyres to the softs. They wanted to be conservative, and they didn't want to mess around the pit crew and just get the hard tyres on the car, get tyres on the car and get it on its way. And it turned out to be a thrilling battle between him and Hamilton, and it was the right call in the end because McLaren finished second. This season has been crazy with the different teams, apart from Red Bull, with the different teams doing well and good, looking like they're doing well one race, and then the next race they're nowhere, and then they're back up to the front, and then they're nowhere. Like with the Mercedes updates, it felt like they were going to be number 2. And then Ferrari then had a good race in Montreal. It looked like they were the second best team. And then obviously we had Aston Martin at the start of there. And then out of nowhere, McLaren are here, the second best team. It's pretty much down to the track and it's pretty much down to the weather, which team is going to do well. And it's funny that this year seems to be a year that most of the teams don't really understand what's happening. A lot of the drivers, a lot of the team principals, they're just saying they don't know. Like this weekend, Williams looked really fast on a Friday, and Albon was saying it's really good to know why you're doing poorly and what you need to improve. But he says it'll be even better if you understand why you're doing well in certain situations. But a lot of the people said they just don't know. They just don't know. They don't fully understand why they do well one weekend and they're not doing well another weekend, and they're still trying to look into it. Aston Martin, their updates that they brought from Canada hasn't worked. They can't get on top of it. They pretty much said they're trying to set the car up and get it to work, but it's not working at the moment. Alonso said to Button who revealed to us on Sky Sports TV that Silverstone being a low downforce circuit is just, they're at the maximum and they can't get any more pace out of the car. But Hungary should work towards Aston Martin's car, so hopefully they'll be doing a lot better there, for me being a fan of Fernando Alonso. So we'll see how we do there. Now I need to touch on to Sergio Perez and reveal like my thoughts on that, on how he is underperforming a great deal. The news have broke that Danny Ric is going to replace De Vries, and to be honest with you, I think Danny Ric should have replaced Perez. Perez has been doing really poorly this last few races, and at the moment he's getting no pressure. At the moment it's fine because Max is winning all the races. Max doesn't need any support from Perez. But this advantage that Red Bull have this season will not move over to next year. Yes, I still believe that Red Bull will be the car to beat next year, but I think the teams will be improving, and they'll get closer to Red Bull. And when they get close to Red Bull, that's when Max will need a number 2 driver to help either take points away from the other teams, his rivals, or to actually defend and have tactical races. So you've got Max and his teammate working together against, another team and his teammate. But obviously this year it doesn't really matter. So that's why I believe they are looking towards Red Bull, looking to next year. With this move with Danny Ric taking over De Vries' position, they are looking to see how he does. Is this the Danny Ric of old, or is this a McLaren Danny Ric? And we're all hoping this is Danny Ric of old, because Danny Ric of old was really a driver that we all regarded. The Danny Ric of old was a driver that we all put in our top 3 or top 5 of current great drivers. That was before the move to McLaren. For some reason, he just couldn't get around the McLaren car and its characteristics, whereas Norris could, and to a certain extent this year Oscar can. But we'll see how Riccardo does in the Toro Rosso and how he does against Tsunoda. But touching on De Vries, is really unfortunate that he's lost his position. It's just so savage. It's so soon. He's only had 10 races. He didn't really have a great opportunity to prove himself. You look at Tsunoda last year, he had so many crashes and so many incidents and so many effing and jeffing on the radio, and he gets a second year. Whereas De Vries doesn't even get to race in his home race. That's how savage it is. There's obviously some politics behind that as well, because Tsunoda's got Honda behind them, and Honda, I'm guessing, has a contract that says they have to have a Japanese driver when they're supporting the 2 teams, even though this year is rebadged as Red Bull's power units or whatever is rebadged as. But yeah, it's still a Honda contracted driver. There's politics there why he got a second year, but De Vries is just so unlucky. But that's Formula 1 for you, and that's Red Bull for you. They've always been savage and they'll continue to be savage. But Danny Ric is back. Danny Ric is back. So we shall see how he gets on, and hopefully he's had a break. It's the old Danny Ric, and he does really well, because Formula 1 needs him. Formula 1 needs his smile. Formula 1 needs a happy Danny Ric. The last 2 years at McLaren, you could see it really affected his mental health, and he wasn't as happy with himself. And he even said afterwards he needed that break from Formula 1, and that's why I didn't move to like a Haas or any other team in the back. He wanted to take the time out to regroup, and he wanted to go back to familiar grounds, and that's be a third driver with Red Bull. Look where it's led. It's led him back onto the grid within the Red Bull family, Toro Rosso, and now it's in his hands. He has to perform for the rest of the year, and if Perez continues doing what he's doing now, then he will be out and Danny Ric will be back into the Red Bull. And I think that's pretty much what we all want. Good old Danny Ric and Max together as teammates, having a joke and a laugh and being at the front of the field. So we shall see how it goes, and hopefully, fingers crossed, everything goes well. But the Hungarian Grand Prix is going to be a really exciting one to look forward to. If you found this video interesting, feel free to subscribe. Thank you for watching, and enjoy the next race.